And now emergency repairs. Plus,
It's a scary number to get your head around. You know, it's another rent payment or another mortgage for families.
soaring costs rising faster than inflation. Toronto has the most expensive daycare costs in the country. And a blockbuster trade for the Raptors. Jonas Valanciunas, CJ Miles, and DeLon Wright are headed to Memphis in exchange for Marc Gasol. Good evening, I'm Mike Wise. There's a new report on childcare, and Toronto is #1. But it's not exactly an enviable title. Our city has the highest childcare costs in the country. Ali Chasson takes us through the numbers.
How costly is Canadian childcare?
The word is scary.
Since 2017, childcare costs have risen faster than inflation in 61% of Canadian cities. Toronto is the most expensive.
We're really sticking out like a sore thumb.
Daycare in our city is nearly 10 times more expensive than in Montreal, where they've had a universal childcare program since 1997.
Let's compare. The median monthly fee for Quebec's largest city is $175. Here, it's $1,675.
More provinces are taking action on affordability. So it's not just Quebec anymore. There's 5 other provinces, Newfoundland, Manitoba, Prince Edward Island, Alberta, and BC are moving forward on capping childcare fees.
William, can you see up here?
The Ontario PCs campaigned on a childcare rebate.
This study actually shows that that's the wrong way to go because it doesn't do anything to control the fees. If you just give parents a check or give them a rebate, there's nothing to stop those fees just going up and more and more public money going to pay for that.
Because costs are up across the country, childcare advocates say the federal government needs to step in too.
We tend to treat this issue as a private problem. You know, it's you had the kids, you pay for them, you know, your problem. But if you really look at childcare, it's a hugely important program to our whole community, to our whole society, and to the economy.
Yeah?
I've heard lots here at the Coalition, parents calling, you know, they're taking out loans, you know, they're having to make decisions about whether or not they can afford to go back to work. And that's often the struggle that parents are going to have.
Ali Chasson, CBC News, Toronto.
The Raptors confirming a major trade tonight, right after the team finished its game in Atlanta tonight. Toronto sending Jonas Valanciunas, CJ Miles, and DeLon Wright to Memphis. It's all for Grizzlies center Marc Gasol. Now, with Tuesday's trade deadline looming, it's seen as a blockbuster deal to improve the roster amid increased competition from Philadelphia and Milwaukee in the Eastern Conference. Valanciunas hasn't played for the Raptors in 25 games. That's after dislocating his thumb. He was cleared to play today, but was shipped out instead. Gasol is a 3-time All-Star. He could make his start with the Raptors on Saturday. A fire forced residents of a Brampton apartment building out into the cold early this morning.
The firemen came and they told us to get out of the building. The fire had started.
It's insane, you know, it's unreal because how the weather is, you know, it's snowing, it's about 6 a.m. now. No one's been in their properties for about 2 to 3 hours now. We're waiting on what's going on.
Now, this happened around 3 a.m. near Kennedy and Queen Streets. Fire crews got a call about sparks coming from an electrical panel on the 11th floor. A pipe had cracked, sending water into the elevator shafts. Brampton Fire says some of that water may have leaked into the electrical panel, causing the fire. The entire building was evacuated. Then all the residents, except those in the top 3 floors, were allowed to return to their units. Shelter buses were eventually brought in for those left out in the cold. They were taken to the nearby Century Gardens Recreation Center as well.
So that's what happens when we get these, you know, deep freezes and then the thaws. If there was a small leak, maybe that was undetected in a system that was in the elevator shaft, it wouldn't be detected until the thaw happens, and then now pipes expand and the leaks start.
Late this afternoon, all residents were allowed back in, except for the ones who lived directly next to where the fire started. Time for our first look at the weather with meteorologist Nick Cernkovich, and we are in the middle of a warm-up right now. Too bad it's not going to last.
Yeah, it's not, Mike. Temperatures are going to peak through the overnight, and then they're going to drop by the time tomorrow morning comes around. So very short-lived warm-up. It is coming with some pretty strong winds, though, and this is the story for tonight. Wind gusts up to about 80 kilometers per hour in the region as we move through tonight. Same story for tomorrow morning, about 50 to 70 kilometers per hour, and through tomorrow afternoon as well. Wind warnings in effect across the north shores of Lake Erie and south shores of Georgian Bay and Lake Huron, and special weather statement for those winds as well, also in effect. Here's the forecast. 9 degrees is a high, but that comes through the overnight, falling. The risk of a thunderstorm in there, -5 by tomorrow afternoon, and it gets even colder than that. Full details coming up.
Okay, thanks, Nick.
You bet.
Well, there was tension today at a Metrolinx public meeting over the timing of 2 planned subway extensions, the Downtown Relief Line and the Line 1 Yonge Street extension from Finch to Highway 7. The mayor of Markham says Metrolinx is now giving mixed signals over which project takes priority. Farah Morali explains.
Outside the Metrolinx board meeting, CEO Phil Verster and Markham Mayor Frank Scarpitti exchanged close words after a tense morning.
So it's really to update you on the 3 streams of work that
Moments earlier, Scarpitti and David Barrow, mayor of Richmond Hill, listened intently from the front row as Metrolinx staff explained why the Downtown Relief Line should be opened before the Yonge North Line.
I'm giving you a very brief information on Relief Line North.
Throughout the presentation, Verster interrupted, saying no subway project should take priority over another.
I think we are hearing mixed messages.
Scarpitti says he heard 2 different things at the meeting and called the Metrolinx research flawed.
But when anyone or any evidence is shown that that line has to be operational before we extend the Yonge subway an inch is wrong. And we've got the evidence to show it. And the Yonge subway extension is not going to take a backseat to any other project in the GTA.
The Yonge North Line would run 7.4 kilometers starting from Finch Station and would extend all the way to Highway 7 in Richmond Hill. The Downtown Relief Line would start on Line 1 at Osgood Station and run east, then north up to Pape, with 8 stations along the way. In its report, Metrolinx says the Downtown Relief Line needs to take priority because Line 1 is already at capacity, and adding more to that would make it worse.
That's the real discussion, is how do we build subways quicker? We shouldn't say one scheme is more important than another scheme.
CEO Phil Verster stood by his stance in the meeting today, but then conceded the Downtown Relief Line must be built first.
Every bit of data we've got suggests the Relief Line South must be open first, yes. And there's a very simple reason for that. The Relief Line South will divert passengers from the existing really busy Line 1, and it's crucial that that happens.
The jockeying between politicians and Metrolinx is to be expected, says this transportation expert, because of money and the looming upload of subways to the province.
And we know that transit projects take a long time in this region and are unpredictable and can be canceled. And so what you're seeing is that the different politicians and the different stakeholders are now making the strongest case for their projects, recognizing that if someone else goes first and then the taps get turned off on money, then their project might be delayed or even canceled altogether.
We don't know what the legislation is going to look like to upload the subways to the province, but today the mayor of Markham said he's looking forward to that, believing that the province will be in support of the Yonge North subway line. The province says both projects are a priority. Farah Morali, CBC News, Toronto.
Developing story we are following tonight, a glimmer of good news for residents of an apartment building near Wellesley and Parliament. Things should be back to normal tomorrow morning. That's after the city shut off the building's water, heat, and power to do a preemptive safety inspection. Now that was Tuesday morning. As Kelda Yun tells us, residents never expected it to go on this long.
The lobby of 280 Wellesley is bustling as people clamor to pick up water and to vent.
A lot of people are getting cold.
They are making life unlivable right now.
We were told that the heat and the water would be back on today.
They said they were initially told that in the first notice from building management, but 36 hours later,
No heat, no water. Nothing.
more notices tonight and more confusion. The power was turned off Tuesday morning so provincial electricity inspectors could conduct a safety review prompted by recent incidents at 260 Wellesley and 650 Parliament, all owned by the same company. This evening, the city said while power has been restored to all floors of the building, water remains off due to fear of freezing pipes. It also says heat has been restored to all units on the first 15 floors. But these residents all live above the 15th floor, and they say it's
Not true.
I'm on the 29th floor, and my floor, you can't stand on it. It's that cold.
Pratik Deshpande took us up to see for ourselves. I could still feel it, and
Yeah.
I have a winter.
I wore a cap on, and my roommate
Did you wear
actually.
socks?
My roommate slept in his jeans because it was that cold.
But while it's been tough for him,
I'm just worried about what the elderly are doing.
so he's part of a group that has been doing this.
Hi, is there an elderly? Do you need water?
Making sure everyone, especially seniors and families, at least have water. Deshpande says they will continue to make rounds like this until everything is working again. Kelda Yoon, CBC News, Toronto.
Well, we are learning even more about the scope of serial killer Elizabeth Wetlaufer's crimes tonight. Last week, CBC News reported that Ontario's Crown prosecutors appeared to have kept quiet about another attack on an elderly patient in the former nurse's care. Well, now we are learning prosecutors withheld knowledge of a second additional victim. Wetlaufer is currently serving a life sentence for killing 8 patients and trying to harm or kill 6 more. John Lancaster has uncovered details of the latest unreported crime.
Ontario government officials won't say why they withheld information about the true scope of Elizabeth Wetlaufer's crimes. Specifically, 2 more attacks on elderly patients in her care. CBC News has learned the latest unreported attack involved a patient at the Crescent Care Facility in Woodstock, Ontario. Wetlaufer placed a pillow over the unidentified patient and tried to smother them. The patient survived. It appears the attack was interrupted. The multi-million-dollar public inquiry tasked with looking into how Wetlaufer's other crimes went undetected for years was never told about the additional crimes, according to a spokesperson. At least not until the inquiry was over. None of this is sitting well with Daniel Silcox. Wetlaufer murdered his father James at the care home, where Wetlaufer is now said to have smothered another patient.
It's absolutely disgraceful. I mean, I don't understand what's to be gained by not allowing the public to know about this. In order for the commission to achieve what they want to achieve, they have to understand and acknowledge and publish the scope of the crimes.
CBC News reached out to Ontario's Attorney General's office and is yet to hear back on why the information was withheld from the public. John Lancaster, CBC News, Toronto.
The application is in and work is underway for Brampton's first legal cannabis store. I'm Lorenda Redikoff. I'll tell you how the neighbors and politicians are feeling. That's coming up.
A 36-year-old Uber driver has been arrested after allegedly driving a passenger while impaired by drugs. Durham Regional Police say they observed the man driving erratically in Oshawa early yesterday morning. They say the man was seen swerving in and out of lanes and at one point driving into oncoming traffic. Police arrested the man from Ajax and charged him with one count of impaired operation of a conveyance by drug. They say he had an Uber passenger in his car at the time of the arrest. Now, that female passenger was not hurt. Ontario's Alcohol and Gaming Commission has disqualified one of the winners of that lottery held to apply for cannabis retail licenses in the GTA. The agency says the applicant has been removed for breaking a rule that prohibits someone from changing the name of the person on the application or the corporate structure of the company operating the store. The commission selected 25 winners through the lottery process last month. The licenses are being divided regionally, with 5 going to the east end of the province, 7 to the west, 2 to the north, and 6 in the Greater Toronto Area, and 5 in Toronto itself. And as of tonight, we know of 2 proposed locations here in Toronto. There's also 1 in St. Catharines, and a 4th spot we know of on Main Street South in Brampton. Now, the path to allow the bricks and mortar shops in that city has not been smooth, with one councillor even launching a petition and website to stop them from moving in. Lorenda Redikoff went to visit the proposed site in Brampton and spoke to people on both sides of the debate.
The transformation is on to turn this former medical clinic into a cannabis store. In the place of that sign, imagine the name Ganjika House. The owner has the official posting up on the door.
It's doctors' offices was essentially what the inside is, and we just have to move around a couple of things so we have a retail store sort of layout instead of a clinic layout.
Just across the parking lot, the closest neighbor is an Indian restaurant.
Because the outside is sometimes the people they smoke and throw it is coming for the smell for the inside.
This is the closest school to the site. It's about 800 meters away. That's well over the minimum distance that the government has set of 150 meters between schools and cannabis shops. The surrounding area also includes many other schools, though all of them are at least a kilometer from the proposed site.
The parents are concerned that they walk this area on Main Street, they bring their kids to the local Dollarama, the Shoppers Drug Mart, and they're just concerned that it's too close in their community.
It seems by all first glances to be very far away from many of the local schools in the area, and so it looks like in this situation the retailer, the applicant, has considered the neighborhood.
People have 2 weeks to go online to comment on any of the proposed sites, but they have to be local residents and can only raise concerns about specific issues.
Public health and safety, youth, and illicit activities. Those are the submissions that the registrar would consider from the public, the residents of that community.
If the site is overruled, the owner could find another shop. But Clint Sukaran is already thinking of the future here at this location. Years ago, it was a Burger King.
There's a drive-through. However, we're not going to use it as yet until the regulations permit. I would love to incorporate it into the store structure at some point, yes.
Lorenda Redikoff, CBC News, Brampton.
New numbers from Stats Canada shows legalizing weed isn't having as big an effect on the black market as the federal government would hope. The figures show about 4.6 million people used cannabis in the last 3 months. It's about 15% of Canadians over 15 years old. Now, nearly half of those who said they used cannabis said they did so for non-medical reasons. And of those non-medical users, about 42% say they got their weed illegally. That means either through unlicensed websites, illegal dispensaries, or through street dealers. You might want to step outside right now if you want to experience the warmest weather we're going to be seeing for a bit. Temperatures are about to take a big dive. Nick is back after the break with your full forecast.
The weather update is brought to you by Train Extreme Conditions Testing. It's hard to stop a train, really hard. Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand.
The Raptors had just 9 players available for their game tonight after trading 4 prior to the trade deadline. Kawhi Leonard sitting tonight out with a sore knee. First quarter, Vince Carter putting on a long-range shooting clinic, draining a couple of 3 balls. The Memphis Grizzlies with a decent lead. That is until Toronto chips away in the third. Pascal Siakam popped at Kyle Lowry for Toronto's first lead since early in the first. Raps running away with it in the fourth. Siakam setting up a Norm Powell three-pointer. The short-handed Raptors come back to clip the Hawks, 119-101. And here's something you don't see every day. Multi-millionaire hockey players in their gear riding the subway to an outdoor practice. Maple Leafs surprising many commuters as they took public transit to Nathan Phillips Square. It's where hundreds of fans turned out to watch the team's annual outdoor public practice. Nick Cernkovich is back with his extended forecast. It's kind of not fair, Nick. The warmest part of Friday is happening in the next couple of hours.
Yeah, absolutely, Mike. And in fact, it's only going to be very short-lived. We're talking about an hour or two, and then temperatures will drop very quickly by the morning hours. And it all comes with some very gusty winds as well. And that's going to be the other driver for tonight. And I'm going to start with the winds again here. Winds through this later evening hours and through the overnight, about 50 to 80 kilometers per hour in some regions along the north shores of Lake Erie, even higher. There are warnings in effect for that, wind warnings. Special weather statement for surrounding areas for wind gusts up to about 80 kilometers per hour. It lasts into tomorrow morning. And in fact, through the day tomorrow, winds will still be about 50 to 70 kilometers per hour. It's not until Saturday morning and then Saturday afternoon where the winds really begin to taper off. And this is going to tie in with the colder temperatures and wind chills that are going to make it feel very cold by the time we hit tomorrow afternoon. In terms of precipitation, rain showers tonight tapering off to a few flurries. And as the winds come out of the west by tomorrow morning, there is the risk for seeing a few flurries across the region and even a little bit of accumulating snow in some areas across the snow belt. Otherwise, things start to clear up by Saturday with sunshine. Rainfall totals with this system, not too high. This might underdo it, but about 3 to 5 millimeters of rain. Then switches over in some areas to a little bit of snow, and that's just with that lake effect snow. So some regions closer to Lake Huron and Georgian Bay could pick up about 5-6 centimeters of snow and blowing snow as well, reducing visibility. So watch for that through tomorrow morning. Southwestern Ontario peaking at 12 degrees, risk of a thunderstorm, and then temperatures falling through the night. In fact, by tomorrow afternoon, -4 in the Windsor area. For the Golden Horseshoe, peaking around 9 to 11 degrees, and then falling by tomorrow morning, about -2 by the afternoon, about -5, and wind chills in the afternoon, making it feel like about -13. So your morning high of -1, then temperatures fall through the day, wind chills -10 in the morning to -19 by the afternoon, and then a pair of -5s for the weekend. Doesn't warm up until next Tuesday. Mike.
Okay, thanks a lot, Nick.
You're welcome.
A funny thing happened in a CBC radio studio today. Sting, yeah, that's Sting. Well, he had just finished his interview with Tom Power on Q when Grammy and Juno award-winning producer David Foster stopped by. He's on the show tomorrow. Well, David Foster and Sting, well, they know each other. They reconnected. And the next thing you know, they were performing the show tune, My Funny Valentine. Take a listen.
Don't change your hair for me. Not if you care for me. Sweet little Valentine.
You can catch that full clip online. Well, you could call this next story the ultimate icebreaker. People in London, Ontario had to deal with the after effects of yesterday's freezing rain, so they had a little fun with their frozen car windows. I've done this before, it's a lot of fun. They posted these videos to Twitter, even the provincial police taking a crack at it. And the Canadian Screen Awards were announced today. Congratulations to Anne with an E and Schitt's Creek, leading the pack with 15 nominations each.
Understood. And don't burn down the house.
Double understood.
I want Green Gables standing when I come back tomorrow.
I believe there's always a bit of good in any situation.
I like to think that, yes, we have an all-female writing room. We have a diverse female writing room, all very important to us, but they're just awesome writers.
Well, the show, inspired by Lucy Maud Montgomery's novel, is up for Best Drama and Best Actor. Now, Schitt's Creek also gets Best Actor nods and is up for Best Comedy against Mr. D and Working Moms. The dark crime drama Cardinal takes home 14 nominations as well. Now, in an industry first, 50% of this year's writing nominations went to female writers. And CBC Toronto is up for 4 awards: Best Local Newscast, Best News Special for Ontario Votes, a show I was proud to work on. Dwight Drummond is up for Best Local Anchor, and our Queen's Park reporter Mike Crawley is up for Best Local Reporter. Congrats to all of them. I'll see you back here tomorrow night at 11 tonight.